So just how bad would a Trump presidency be for the environment? I'm joined from Washington by William Yeatman of the Competitive Enterprise Institute. Mr. Trump is tipped to appoint its energy and environment boss as head of the Environmental Protection Agency. And here in the studio, James Thornton, who's founder and CEO of the environmental law organisation Climate Ch4. William Yeatman first. Donald Trump has described climate change as a hoax. Your boss, Myron Ebell, who is planning Mr. Trump's energy policy, was described by activists in Paris as a, quote, climate criminal wanted for destroying our future. Does anyone who is concerned about the planet need to be worried today?
Oh, my. Well, I mean, concerned about the planet comes in many forms, and indeed poverty reduction, I would say, is a more pressing priority. That's a belief shared not just by me and by Myron Ebell, although I can't speak to the transition at all. I don't know anything about that. But it's one shared by the American people. I mean, it's 22nd out of 22 priorities, according to Pew polling. Even among self-described liberals, it's the 6th most important priority. So really, is this a matter of this one president? I might add here that climate and energy was in no way an issue whatsoever in this election. I mean, you're putting a lot on his plate, I guess.
Okay.
So
well,
is it bad for the planet that we refocus efforts on poverty reduction? I don't know. I mean, it's good for human beings.
Okay, let me put that to...
And I elevate, I guess, human well-being over that of nature as an abstract.
All right, let me put that to our guest in the studio, James Thornton. Actually, get our priorities right. There are other priorities, poverty reduction, for example, that we should be privileging.
Well, the problem with global climate change is that it's such a serious and systemic threat to all aspects of global civilization, global infrastructure, to crops, to anything you might want to name. That in the long run, if you want to reduce poverty, which is a great idea, you're going to have to deal with climate change.
Well, let me put that back to William Yeatman. This is so all-encompassing that it needs to be addressed, climate change.
Oh, well, I mean, I guess I disagree with that catastrophic scenario. By no means is there a consensus that the outcome or that global warming is catastrophic in the end of the day. So given kind of the overwhelming odds of non-catastrophic global warming, then you start weighing benefits versus costs. So, and if indeed it is non-catastrophic and you're talking about costs that entail overturning the global economy, well, that exacerbates poverty problems for 2 billion people that currently live under $1 a day. So I don't think it's crazy to elevate those people's immediate well-being over that of a 3-degree temperature rise 100 years from now.
Okay, so you would, in that context then, expect Donald Trump to keep his promise to withdraw from the Paris climate deal, would you?
Well, I mean, insofar as it's an entirely voluntary agreement that was never submitted to the Senate for ratification and it carries no binding legal force, I don't see why it matters whether or not he withdraws.
Right, let me put that to James Thornton. It doesn't matter whether the US is signed up to Paris or not.
It matters a great deal. The Paris Agreement is a turning point in human history in that all the countries in the world came together agreeing that climate change was a great threat, and I would say catastrophic threat. And all the climate scientists that have any serious credentials would agree that it's a catastrophic threat. All countries agreed that we had to do something about it. Now, all countries except the United States are intending to do something about it. China wrote to Mr. Trump today to say, we are going to continue to follow the Paris Accords no matter what the United States does. Well, and get this.
So therefore it doesn't matter whether the US is involved or not. If China and every country from China to Saudi are going to go ahead anyway.
You're right about Saudi. Isn't it remarkable that Saudi Arabia says we're going to do this? It's because they know it's very important. Is it important for the United States? Yes. It's still one of the largest global emitters of carbon. If it withdraws, it makes it much harder for everybody else. Everybody else is going to have to pay a much higher price, and the United States will become a free rider. Americans don't like being free riders. They like to be fair, and they would become very unfair to the rest of the world.
William Yeatman, the Paris deal needs the US.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
The Paris deal needs the US.
Oh, well, again, I guess I disagree with the gentleman regarding the importance of this deal. It's legally non-binding. There's no legal responsibilities that flow from it. And with respect to other countries' tendency or ability or willingness to comply, look no further than the Kyoto Protocol. You know, again, that was supposedly for the countries that entered into that, and that was the precursor to the Paris Accord. Japan didn't follow its agreement. Canada didn't follow its agreement. The EU was only able to meet its commitments by virtue of the fact they adopted the Soviet-era industry and retired it all.
Well, can I appeal,
and the British dashed to gas.
Can I appeal to your
there's
wallet?
There's really been no country
okay.
has sacrificed on behalf of one of these agreements yet, so I don't know why the U.S. would be...
Sorry to jump in there.
I mean, again,
we're
to me it's weird
time.
there would be so much import put into this deal.
Okay, can I just jump in and just say that China is saying that the US will miss out on a whole load of new green jobs. Will that not sway the billionaire, Mr. Trump?
I mean, if you believe that, we've got a saying in the United States to express incredulity, and that is, if you believe that, then I've got a bunch of land in Florida, swampland I'd love to sell you. So yeah, this notion that there's a global green race for a green energy, that's one we should lose. I mean, insofar as these industries are only a function of political favoritism, that's not the sort of business plan you want for your country. So China can have that all day.
William Yeatman, James Thornton, thank you very much for joining me.